rewinding 20 years, I definitely was not in the place I'm in now. I think there was more of like a yearning and even like a desperation. But I think what happens is when you're in that place of just like focusing so much on a relationship and wanting it so badly, I think it kind of forces you to take action. And the way I took action was like designing a life that was going to be meaningful even without that. It's like these little deposits of meaning and community that collectively fill my bucket so that I am not thinking of a relationship as like filling it all the way to the brim. It's already like 3/4 filled.
Welcome to Normalizing Non-Monogamy, the podcast where we interview incredible people from all over the world to hear their personal journeys of self-discovery through the lenses of love, sex, and relationships.
Our mission is to show people that they're not alone and to inspire them to embrace their true selves so that together we can open minds and live authentically without shame.
We believe everyone's story is powerful and beautiful, yet it's important to remember that everyone does life a little bit differently and that the views and opinions expressed by our guests do not necessarily reflect our own.
Additionally, we aren't doctors. Please consult a medical professional for anything regarding your health that you might learn about on the show. Enjoy!
Well, welcome to episode 443. We're Finn and Emma, and today we've got Leah back on the podcast. She first joined us about 5.5 years ago, back on episode 146, when she was only about a month into exploring non-monogamy after meeting someone who was partnered on a dating app. Leah has always been a bit of a relationship junkie, as you'll see, and over the last 2 years, she's been really digging into what she wants and what truly works for her in relationships.
Yeah, we have some really incredible conversations throughout this interview as Leah shares about her experiences of meeting people and dating as a solo poly person. One of the things I really love about the conversation is how Leah talks about how she's been so intentional about creating a life full of adventure and connection that doesn't necessarily rely on having sexual and romantic partners. As you'll hear, she's definitely open to it and desires it, but she's also formed deep and intimate friendships that fill up her cup most of the way.
Another kick-ass thing Leah has done in her life was creating the Esther Perel discussion group on Facebook. It's got over 16,000 people in it today, and later in the interview, Leah talks about how she built a community that brings together all sorts of people who are interested in relationships, but in particular, how she created a space where people who've been on all sides of infidelity can come together in one place.
Yeah, the way she created community culture where people who've cheated, people who've been cheated on, and the people who've been the quote-unquote other person can all come together in discussion is completely mind-blowing to me. So yeah, huge props to you, Leah. Please go check out Leah's work.
The link to join Leah's discussion group are in the show notes over on our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com. And while you're there, scroll down on the homepage to sign up for a premium subscription for just $4 a month so you can check out Leah's bonus episode.
Yes, if you're not familiar, our premium subscribers get ad-free podcast episodes plus a new 10 to 15-minute bonus episode every single week where our guests answer some fun extra questions and give us an opportunity to get to know them even deeper than we do during our regular interview. And like Emma said, you can sign up on the homepage of our website at normalizingnonmonogamy.com for just $4 a month. And with that, it's time to jump right into the interview with Leah for all of our premium subscribers. And for everybody else, we've got just a few announcements.
First up, we wanted to remind all of you about our community. We lead a community full of over 300 people socializing and supporting one another every single day. We host the community on a platform called Mighty Networks, and we have monthly community support Zoom calls, monthly virtual workshops, and in-person events as well, all for less than $10 a month. Just a reminder that our next monthly workshop is coming up May 27th. Mark your calendars. It's going to be called Building Emotional Resilience with Miche. You're going to want to check it out. A reminder that you can find all the information about our workshops and how to join the community over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the community tab.
And a quick reminder as well, if you click on the workshops tab, you can see the list of all of the workshops we've had over the last few years, plus everything else coming up for the rest of this year. And when you're a member of our community, you not only get whatever workshop is happening that month, you get recordings to everything that we've done in the past. So at this point, if you join the community, you get almost 20 workshops. So definitely want to check it out. We'd love to see you in there.
And next up, we want to remind you all of our favorite way to get tested for STIs. It is stdcheck.com. It is fast, easy, discreet. And when you use the links on our website over the resources tab, you get $10 off, making a 10-panel test only $129. This is a service Finn and I use. We've been using it for years. We highly encourage you to check it out. And when you use those links, you support the podcast. So thank you in advance for doing so.
And the last thing we wanted to tell you all is that we would absolutely love to hear from you. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, or best of all, if you want to come on the podcast yourself to share your story, we would absolutely love to have you do that. You can find out more information on how to do that over under the Contact Us tab of our website. And now, without any further ado,
let's go and talk with Leah.
Let's do it. Well, welcome back to the podcast, Leah. It has been a while.
Yes.
It's been almost 6 years since we last chatted with you. We're excited to catch up and
I love in the last episode we're like, oh, we'll catch up in 6 months, and then
well,
it's been
6 months, 6 years. What's the difference when you're in a pandemic, right?
I can't believe it's been 6 years. It does not feel like that long to me.
Right?
No.
It's wild. Well, we're so glad to have you back and excited to catch up today. For anybody who doesn't know who you are, do you mind just giving a quick intro to who is Leah, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I live in Chicago. I came across your work about 6 years ago when I was first introduced to an open dynamic. It wasn't something I had sought out, as I think can be common for people in this space. I was actually just listening to Esther Perel's weekly podcast, Where Should We Begin? And she had an episode with someone who was divorced and dating and kind of unknowingly started dating someone who was in an open relationship and was navigating that. And that was kind of my experience too. I was on a dating app. I matched with someone who I was vibing with and then learned that him and his partner were in the early stages of opening up their dynamic. So that's how I first connected with Emma and Finn. And I would say that I've been exploring open relationships since. I'm at a place where I think that I could be happy and fulfilled in a monogamous relationship as well as an open relationship. I think what I've enjoyed most is just kind of unpacking a lot of the assumptions about what a relationship needs to look like and just kind of opening my mind to more possibilities. And so that's kind of where I'm at now. I don't know if I really answered. Do you want more kind of about my bio or?
No. That's great.
Yeah.
I think we're excited because I think you touched on it, but the last time we talked,
Yeah.
you were like a month in.
Yes.
You were basically weeks into this experiment for yourself. And,
yes, it was really soon.
and I'm curious, like just today, I know you kind of said like you're kind of good either way and you've been exploring it, but I'm curious.
And we're going to go back to hear the story.
We'll catch up the last 6 years, but I'm curious what it looks like. What do your relationships look like? What's your ecosystem looking like today at the beginning of March 2026?
Yeah, I would say it's more. I have a lot of very fulfilling, deep friendships in my life at the moment. I don't have a romantic connection, not because it's not something I'm interested in, just because I think that I do get a lot of kind of intimacy and connection from my close friendships. One of my closest ones is a gay couple. One of the partners is my trainer. I'm very close with his husband as well. And we do, we get together for dinner once a week. We're constantly like sharing about our lives and supporting each other and laughing at the silly stuff. And yeah, I think I'm at a point in my life where I'm really valuing intimacy. I'm valuing being open and honest and vulnerable. And I'm having trouble finding that I'm having more ease finding that in my friendships than in romantic partnerships. And I know a lot of people are in the same boat as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just kind of prioritizing where I'm getting those needs met. And that's coming mainly through friendships.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm curious, Leah, for you, just to maybe contrast your friendships before you started exploring open relating and today. this idea that we can get some of that intimacy and that closeness from our friends, honestly, I think that was a bit foreign to me
Yeah.
before sort of expanding how we can relate to one another. Because I think I often felt like, well, a friend is in this box and it's a very tight box. And I think as I've opened up my sort of view on that, it's opened up opportunities to have intimacy and connection in platonic friendships, or maybe in one-off meetings, just, having dinner with somebody. And I'm just curious for you how that shifted over the last few years of exploring this, like bringing that into friendships rather than trying to be like, well, the only place to get intimacy is in a romantic or sexual partnership.
Yeah, entirely. I think for me, I've always enjoyed depth over kind of like the surface level topics. And so
Mhm.
I would say that when I think about my friendships over time, they have had depth and they've had like a desire to go deep with the person. I think what's newer for me though is I've struggled with kind of showing the messiness in my life, and it's kind of like exposure therapy where like month after month, year after year, the more I do it, the easier it gets and the more I want more of it. And actually, recently for me, it's shown up more. I've just had some health issues, nothing like life threatening, but just kind of a series one after another. And I think in the past, I've just like tried to kind of deal with it myself. That's been, again, something that I've been working on from just my childhood, where I had a very sick mom and like needed to be her caregiver. And I needed my stuff to always be 100% good because there wasn't a
Mhm.
lot of space for it not to be good,
Mhm.
and needed to like handle it on my own. So I think one of my growth journeys has been like just feeling comfortable sharing the messy stuff and being like supported by people. And again, in this case, it's been through like some of my closer friendships. But that's been like one of my growth edges, I think, since we last connected, is allowing myself to like receive support and kind of show like the messier sides.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. As
Mhm.
opposed to when somebody's like, well, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine.
Right.
Yeah, I'm good.
Right.
Things are a little bit tricky and hard, but I'm okay. Like trying to brush it off because we don't want to open that up. We don't want to put that on somebody.
Yeah, or just like focusing on like the positive things or like
Yep.
the good things
Yep.
that are happening
Right.
Totally.
versus sharing like the full picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right.
I love that. And there's so much power in, I don't know, when somebody comes to me like, man, no, it's been hard this week and like I'm drowning. The news is crazy. It's like the world is crazy. And somebody else saying that, you're like, oh, thank you. Like I'm not the only one who's feeling that like life is crazy right now. It's really, I don't know, for me it's so refreshing when people can bring that, but
Mhm.
it's not necessarily encouraged a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like, it's really something I've had to work on because
Mhm.
I have just like a lot of core wounds around it. Like, why can't I just handle this on my own? I'll be perceived in a certain way. Just stuff like that that I had no idea was there. It was a relationship from about 10 years ago that really shone a light on like this work that kind of needed to be done. I had always created a story like, yeah, things were hard growing up. You know, my mom was like really sick and just kind of this like whirlwind of needs and chaos. And I created this like protective story that yes, it was hard, but like I was like uniquely suited to deal with it. And that is true. Like I dealt with it incredibly well. But I don't think I gave myself space to acknowledge like the other piece, which is that it was really hard. And I developed a lot of like compensatory strategies to deal with it.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
repressed a lot of stuff. And so the last 10 years have been kind of like a journey of just like peeling back those layers.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
so it has surprised me how hard even like just going in for like a medical procedure and like telling a friend like, hey, like, would you be able to just like check in on me after, or could you like pick me up from the doctor's office? Even that is like, it's something that, like I'll go through in my mind and like just ask them, like they're going to show up for you.
Yeah.
So that's been good. And I know other people, deal with that as well. Or maybe the flip side, maybe they're, overly wanting to lead. And so their growth edge is more to be like self-sufficient and independent. But that's definitely something that's kind of been a theme over the past year.
Yeah. I love that. It's not easy work to do, like undoing decades, a whole life almost of these
Right.
these tools and strategies we develop to protect ourselves. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to go back in time a little bit to when we last talked, you had just kind of dove into this world a little bit.
Yeah.
But you had been in the world of talking about, geeking out about relationships for a little while. And where did it go? How was your journey after we talked to you?
Yeah. So we spoke kind of in the throes of my initial experience.
Yes.
Which ended, so it was a complex situation because the man that I connected with, we'll call him C, he was not new to open relationships, and his girlfriend was new. And so he was really walking on eggshells to kind of like make the experience as easy and pain-free as possible. And the result was that it made the experience kind of like rockier for me. It was like at every moment of potential friction, he was making sure that her needs and worries were taken into consideration. And kind of by default, that meant that I was put on the back burner and not like equally considered. And I do think that that's probably common in partnerships where there is hierarchy, or they started off, as primary partners and now they're opening up. I think what that experience taught me is it was a lesson in like getting clear on my non-negotiables and then showing up for them and then like seeing them through. And I did do a great job of that. It's funny because I actually reconnected with C last year.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had kind of I had a romantic experience which felt healing for me and just kind of inspired me to reach out. We hadn't spoken in about 5 years, and we had a really nice reconnection. He had moved since we had been together and was kind of across the country. Him and his partner just had a baby. They were in a don't ask, don't tell situation, which is one of my non-negotiables. I don't want to like engage if there's don't ask, don't tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't pursue anything further, but it did feel good to just touch base, like truly like no hard feelings and just kind of catch up. So that was nice. I feel like I've kind of rambled and didn't answer your question.
Not at all.
No, it's all relevant. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked what was my open-ended question was what did the journey take you next? Where did it take you next? And so, you're answering it along the way.
Yeah, I would say kind of like where I'm at now is I love learning about how other people do relationships and what's challenging about it and what works for them. And I've also really leaned into the community aspect of poly. There aren't a lot of groups for like monogamous couples that want to hang out, but there are a lot for poly people that want to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And in Chicago, there's a vibrant community. And so I've kind of taken it upon myself to create community within one of the groups that I'm a part of and organizing a couple events a year. We do an annual holiday party and we do like picnics and concerts in the park in the summertime. And so that's been, I'd say kind of like community has been super meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
Learning about the way people structure their relationships and what works and what doesn't has been super meaningful. I'd say those are kind of like the two pieces when I think about my poly journey that really stand out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm curious, after you said you had a romantic experience that kind of inspired you to reach back out to see him.
Oh.
Curious,
Mhm.
after things kind of the first time wrapped up with that couple, what, like, did you end up like trying to date more and you were exploring on field? Like, have you had some experiences for yourself over the last few years that have worked for you?
I mean, every relationship I feel like teaches you a lot,
Yeah.
whether it's
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
yourself or others or what you want or what you don't want.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think what I've learned is it can be very challenging for someone who doesn't have a primary partner
Yep.
to enter into a dynamic, especially with a couple that's been together for a long time,
Totally.
maybe that, owns a house or has kids together or like finances are entangled. I think I think that can be challenging. I think it's easier if both people have primary partners in that sense. And so I've had a couple of experiences with relationships where the male partner, because I generally date men, maybe he's requested an open relationship, or maybe they both have, and it just it hasn't been fulfilling for me.
Yeah. Yep.
It's felt it doesn't have kind of like the depth that I'm looking for.
Mhm.
And so I feel like because my life is full, it's very easy for me to just like walk away from those situations.
Yeah.
I've also dated people. So the experience that I just mentioned that kind of inspired me to reach back out. So that was one where the person had primarily dated monogamously, had joined field and started dating someone in an open who wanted an open relationship. And so when I met him and I shared about, that I'm comfortable being monogamous, I'm drawn to some elements of poly. He was like, "Oh, that's great because I'm dating someone who's open, so that works really well." And then kind of as we continue to date, he got clear that, he wants to be monogamous. and and so I've navigated that.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
I've had like, a lot of short-lived experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing super long-term or
Yeah.
like honestly meaningful.
Yeah.
Well, and it sounds like you've had experiences mostly over the last 6 years where, like, you have met somebody that is either in another partnership or connection of some sort, and you're been doing non-monogamy or polyamory that way.
Yeah.
Whereas instead of like meeting someone and then the two of you kind of being open together and from that space.
Yeah. And I think the latter is a lot easier, to be honest. I'm sure for some people, more of like the solo poly route is a great fit.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it hasn't been the best fit.
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate you sharing your experience in this because I think it's so helpful, I think, for people to hear the experience of somebody trying to date or form connections with established couples. Because like you said, if you own a house, you've got your finances entangled, maybe you have kids or pets or
Mhm.
whatever. Like, even if you are out there trying to be like, we are the most non-hierarchical couple that's ever coupled,
Yeah.
like all of those things still create forms of hierarchy that you're going to feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I'm curious, have you done any exploring, like meeting people who are also solo poly, like sort of the solo poly meet solo poly person?
Yeah. I would say just like from a numbers standpoint, it's harder to find.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. And it's so because that's harder to find, then you've just been meeting people that tend to be in other relationships, but then you're navigating being in a relationship with somebody who's already in a relationship. And that just introduces a lot of complex factors. And also, if it sounds like people you've met that have like, been figuring it out themselves, which is totally fair. But then they might realize things too that doesn't necessarily, your relationship with them doesn't necessarily continue.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd say like another piece of the puzzle is folks who've been monogamous for decades and then get divorced and are kind of exploring alternative relationship structures. So I've had a couple experiences there too, which have been interesting. With one person, I think there was, how do I say this? This was a very interesting experience, which I honestly have never had before. So we connected on, I think it was Fields, had some great phone calls. He was super interested in meeting up. I had a bunch of things where I was out of town, so the meeting kind of got pushed back a little longer than he would have liked. And finally, we met up for a dinner. We're having great conversation, like great chemistry, great intellectual vibes. And I think because his marriage had been, it had been more or less like a sexless marriage or like a desireless marriage. It was one more of like the kids were kind of like the center of the universe, and sex and desire were not a big part of the picture.
Yeah.
And so I guess he had been drawn to poly, I think, because he had a big hole in his life around feeling desired and sex. That makes sense. But he created some rules around, which he shared with me like mid first date, that because for so many decades he was in a sexless marriage, now he's only interested in dating people who are physical on the first date. And so it's been interesting to see people bring kind of more of like a casual sex perspective to the picture. I've had that. I've also had someone who's divorced with like a tricky, they're 50% with their kids, 50% free time. And, was thinking, oh, like that could be interesting to explore. And I've felt a lot of men who are, so I'm in my mid 40s. So generally I'll date men who are like in their 40s or 50s. And I have noticed kind of like a lack of, and this has surprised me, men who have several kids and are like really into being a dad. It almost feels like their emotional focus and capacity is like 100% on the kids. And it's felt hard for them to have space for a romantic connection as well. Almost like a lack of sexual drive or like testosterone, again, which has surprised me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like you want them to be great dads, right? That's not, you're not like, I don't want you to care about your kids, but if it's like so consuming that there's nothing left for you, like those are tough dates and relationships to be going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm curious, Leah, like as you've gone through some of these experiences the last few years and you've tried some different things on, what do you see for yourself as sort of like your ideal situation right now? And again, I know this can ebb and flow as we figure things out, but like what, like you're like, well, this is what I'm kind of hoping to find and create.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm definitely someone who has like very intentionally created a life that I love, and it's a full life. And so in my dream scenario, I think I would be connecting deeply with someone a couple times a month. I really enjoy living alone and I have my own place. I wouldn't be opposed to having someone, stay over, but probably not interested in sharing a domestic experience.
They can have a drawer, but not a whole room.
They can have a part of a closet, a couple drawers, a couple shelves, a shelf in the fridge.
Yeah.
So I think like in an ideal scenario, a couple weekends a month, we would have an amazing dinner, great conversation, great sex. And then throughout the week, when we're kind of doing our own things, we'd be in touch, sharing aspects of our life. That's kind of the dream for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like in this dream, it would be one person, or maybe a couple different people would sort of be part of that?
I feel like super open to both.
Yeah,
I don't have like a strong preference one way or another.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. I feel like what I take away from this is this desire to, like, I don't want to lose myself, right? You have this life that you love living.
Yeah.
You're very active. You go to the gym, you hang out with your trainer and his husband, and you've got this community, and like you don't want to give those things up,
Yeah.
but also want to bring in some more depth that doesn't consume your whole life, every waking minute, but there can still be depth and meaning and closeness and great sex and these fun experiences.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm curious how it's gone you mentioned last time that you had talked to your dad a little bit about it, and I think
Oh,
even brought
yeah.
him on to
Yeah.
like not an episode, but like to talk with in front of your community or something like that. And he had sort of was like cautioning you about putting so much of your relationship out there. And I'm curious how it's gone the last few years with sort of being open with him and about this, and family and friends who were maybe not part of the non-monogamy before you got there.
Totally. So my dad and I are very close. He is a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
and he is just someone where monogamy works so well for him. He was monogamous with my mom for over 25 years. They got divorced when her bipolar was like really, she was having trouble finding medication that worked, and it was really out of control. And I think that was the right move for both of them. And he got remarried soon after. They met through a mutual friend, and they just have such an incredible relationship. They're so complimentary. They like love doing life together. And I think so monogamy has worked very well for my dad. And because he's a therapist, he has had a couple patients that he's seen that have had elements of non-monogamy, and it's just been like a total clusterfuck. Like every like fucked up thing you could imagine happening was happening.
Yeah.
And
It's almost like the therapists and psychologists we don't bring them the good stuff usually. We don't usually show up in their office like, hey,
Yeah.
just wanted to pay you a few $100s to tell you how amazing things are going in my relationship.
Totally. And it's funny too, because there's a woman, I wouldn't call her a therapist. She is essentially like a therapy creator.
Okay.
And I think the world of her. And I've gotten so much from her content. I've been a part of her community, I think, for over 6 years. And she is someone who, kind of similar to my dad, wouldn't like outright be negative or not accepting of poly, but definitely like has a bias and a preference. And I think that's just kind of like part of like the mononormative culture. So to go back to my dad, I kind of just have honestly not brought it up since. I had the initial conversation. I think he's like, okay, this is probably like a phase. And I felt a little bit dismissed in that conversation. So I brought up the conversation again, and he like validated that he could have been a little bit more like open-minded and curious about it. But I just realized like he's a boomer. Monogamy has worked great for him, and he doesn't need to be like looped into every single aspect of my romantic life.
Yeah.
And I think if I had a partner where, we were long term, I felt like this is a really meaningful relationship and I want to introduce them to my dad, I think it would be fine. And I think he would be open-minded. It might be hard for him. Like if it was like someone who was married, I think that would be hard for him. But I guess I don't feel like given that they do have a preference for monogamy, it hasn't really bothered me. It's just something where, he grew up the way he did in the time that he did and has had the experiences he's had. And I could see why, like, knowing all of that information, like, he would preference monogamy and wants what's best for me and thinks monogamy would be best for me.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, and you, like you said, you don't have at this time, you don't have someone in your life that you want
Right.
to bring in that would open up that conversation more naturally.
Totally.
And if that does happen, it sounds like you would do that, but
I
it's
would.
just that's not where things are at right now.
Yeah. And I think it would be a weird conversation with my date
Yeah.
if I was dating someone who's married. I definitely think that would be a mind
Blow
fuck
his
for
mind a
him.
little
Yeah.
bit. Yeah. Like,
But-
what the hell? Okay. Like try to be supportive, but also trying to process it all.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to go back a little bit too to the conversation about community, and you
Oh,
talked a
yeah.
bit about how this was just like a big part of your, I would say, your relational ecosystem right
Yeah.
now. And I think just something that sticks out to me in this, and in how many, like, we talk to so many people, and there's a lot of people right now who are, I mean, similar, like struggling to find romantic sexual connections that feel good. But there's also this like, there's a lot of like struggle in it. Like people are having a really hard time, and I'm sure, I'm sure it's not always super easy. But you talk about it with a bit of a lightness that feels like, yeah, that's what I want. But like, I'm super fulfilled. I'm happy. I have friendships. I have community, and I think I would just love to talk a little bit about how you've gone about building that community, and I think that resiliency to where there's a desire for this other type of relationship, but it doesn't feel like it's so consuming that it like ruins your life. I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Y- Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I definitely like rewinding 20 years. I definitely was not in the place I'm in now. I think there was more of like a yearning and even like a desperation. But I think what happens is when you're in that place of just like focusing so much on a relationship and wanting it so badly, I think it kind of forces you to take action. And the way I took action was like designing a life that was going to be meaningful even without that. So whether it's like activities, I do a lot of like just like dance, and I'm at my gym a bunch. I love group classes. That's how I got so close with my trainer, of course. Even at my gym, there's an amazing like group fitness community. So we'll do like social events together and hang out. That's been incredibly meaningful. That's interesting because that's more of like a surface level community.
Mhm.
I don't really go deep, with the exception of my trainer and his husband. I don't really go like super deep with any of those folks, which can be nice too, just to have
Yeah.
folks to hang with.
Yeah, like social friendships that aren't, just enjoyable and fun and lighthearted.
Entirely. And then I also created the Esther Perel discussion group community, which has been a huge part of my life. So that's an online community. We're over 16,000 people from around the globe. We've done live events with them. We do virtual events. We have kind of ongoing posts that connect us, that like challenge our thinking. So I have that piece. Very into dance for a while. I did pole dancing several times a week. Unfortunately, I've had 2 studios close on me. So not pole dancing at the moment, but doing other dance instead. So essentially like seeking out and creating meaningful moments each day of the week for me to feel like I'm connecting and just kind of like stretching myself as well. Signing up for things like I did like a woodworking class last winter, just to like try something new, meet new people, etc.
Yeah.
Very involved in like the Jewish community, and that's a piece of it also. So I think it's just kind of like designing my life. It's like these little deposits of meaning and community that collectively fill my bucket so that I am not thinking of a relationship as like filling it all the way to the brim. It's already like
Yeah.
3/4 filled. And so
Yeah.
It's like if you think of like when you are out driving your car and your gas tank is on empty, there's a sense of desperation to find the next pump. Whereas if you're like half full, like maybe you fill up and, maybe you wait a day or two type thing. That's kind of how I think of it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I also think that, diving deep into Esther Perel's work and then through that, others' work on like desire and eroticism, I think there are ways in which you can really tap into that without necessarily just having sex. For me, pole dancing was a huge piece of just kind of like connecting with sensuality and music and movement. And the community there was amazing. It was like the same people at the classes and like the instructors you love. And so finding creative ways to tap into your own sense of sensuality and eroticism was not something that was kind of really on my radar before. But that's, I think, been a piece of it as well.
Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
I love that. And I love this conversation. Again, we've talked to just so many people where it's, the world, it's beating on us right now.
Yeah.
And to not get burned out and bitter, and the number of people who we talk to, like the dating apps suck, everything about dating sucks, the whole system is broken. And
Which is not wrong.
which is not, yeah, it's super valid. But
Yeah.
like hearing you talk about, like, nothing you mentioned was, I go to a bar every weekend and try to pick people up, right? Like, and there's nothing wrong with trying that,
Yeah.
but you're like, I go to the gym, I go to dance classes, I took a woodworking class. I just tried to fill my life with the things that I thought were going to be fulfilling for me,
Mhm.
and it has.
Mhm.
Like, and I just think that's amazing.
Yeah.
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 Well, and it also takes the pressure off, I think. So, this common discussion around, and like in our culture, it's so easy to put so much pressure on one person to
Yeah.
fulfill so much in our lives. And
And
that
to be that person.
and to be that
Yeah.
person for somebody else.
Yeah.
And just to rewrite that narrative and find, figuring out how to fill your cup from so many different places takes that pressure off as well, and allows you to have more space to connect in a way that feels authentic for that connection rather than adding all this pressure.
Yeah. And easier said than done, of course.
Oh,
Oh, totally.
totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect caveat, right? That's something that it's easy for, I think it's especially easy for Emma and I to say as we sit here in our, decade and a half relationship. We've been together 20 years. So it's easy to sit from that place of privilege and be like, just go out and just fill your bucket on your own as we sit here and
Yeah.
say that. So I know that is much easier said than done. And I know I would struggle like hell with it. So I think some of this too is just me knowing like this is probably the approach I would take and have taken at times when, we're figuring out right now, we're in the throes of figuring out how to sort of not be enmeshed into one human, but to both like have our own things. And that's a different level of discomfort of being like, okay, I'm going to go out by myself tonight. And it's like, well, but I'm free. Like, I know you're free. I know we're both free tonight. We're going to do something individual. And
Mhm.
it is not easy to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just appreciate you sharing a bit about that, and your path to building like a fulfilling life that doesn't hinge on the one.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think I just want to acknowledge, like, for anyone who's out there who's feeling isolated or lonely or like yearning for deep connections in their life and not coming across it, I totally get the feeling of like, why do I have to like work?
Mm.
Why do I have to like work to make this happen? Especially when you see around you people where it seems like effortless, like they just have it and it's built in. And so I totally get that feeling of why do I have to why do I have to build all of these pieces brick by brick?
Mhm.
But I will say like stuff leads to more stuff. And so the more you put like one kind of piece in action, oftentimes other pieces will follow.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I'm curious if you can think of it, like if you have one of these experiences over the last few years where you're like, I gave it a go or whatever, and it just sort of like led into the next thing. And then before I knew it, like I was having some type of amazing, whatever, an experience, a connection, just sort of one of those moments that like really lit you up that you like, again, you kind of had to work for it, but the reward was there.
Yeah, I think probably the Esther Perel discussion group would be what
Yeah.
comes to mind. So
Yeah.
I started that community. I had just been ghosted in a really unexpected way and happened like within several days to be seated in an auditorium listening to Esther Perel on stage. And she ended her talk with the line, "In dating and relationships, we're often picked for a role that we didn't audition for." And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, that is gold. And I want to discuss it with other people. I want to like hear their experiences as well. Like what roles did they pick others for? What roles were they picked for that they weren't interested in? And so I started the Esther Perel discussion group on Facebook, really not thinking anything of it. I thought we'd maybe get a handful of people and it would just kind of die like a lot of the Facebook groups out there. But instead, the opposite happened. There were so many people that were interested, and the group kind of grew exponentially. And so initially, it just started off with people posting questions, a question they have about a topic that Esther touches on, whether it's infidelity, which is a core topic, or like loss of desire in a long-term relationship, modern dating. And from there, we started doing, we did during COVID, we did like virtual meetups. We had a women's group. We started doing interviews with experts, everyone from Shannon Curry, who was one of the legal experts during the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp trial. We've done
Wow.
Dr. Alexandra Solomon, who's a leader in the space. She's got a great podcast called Reimagining Love. We've done Mark Groves and Connor Beaton of Man Talks, and just a whole host of really interesting thought leaders in the space. And so that's been super meaningful and just kind of like intellectually stimulating. We've done a handful of live events, from like larger events with 100 people to like smaller meetups at an Airbnb. So that's been kind of an amazing, completely unexpected, all of these little experiences from the in-persons to the virtual groups to the podcast interviews, has been just kind of like the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I love that you share that. I was just going to ask you before Finn asked that question to talk more about the group, and you did such a beautiful job explaining the whole trajectory.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that. I'm curious your experience too of being in lots of communities. You just talked about different ones that you're in
Mhm.
versus leading one. And I mean, 16,000 people, that's a pretty big global reach for people who are actively engaged talking about such an important topic.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, the Esther Perel discussion group, it feels like my passion and my purpose. So I love what I do professionally. And that's super rewarding. That's kind of a piece that I haven't really touched on yet, but I love the work I got to do, and it's really stimulating and creative and fun. But I also love having something on the side that has nothing to do with my work that is so deeply meaningful. And I knew when I started the group, because Esther, one of her core focuses is infidelity, and she has kind of an unexpected take on it where no one person involved in the infidelity is better than the next. She really looks at kind of like the motivations for infidelity and how couples that are interested in repairing can repair. And by the way, for anyone who's not familiar with her, she has a podcast called Where Should We Begin, which is simulated couples therapy. So people write into her. She's been doing therapy one-on-one with people for, I think it's like 40 years. But obviously, ethically, you can't do that on a podcast. So she has non-clients or non-patients write in with a question. They select people for episodes, and she has a ton They just had a really interesting episode related to infidelity. The most recent one that dropped this week was about ethical non-monogamy. So she covers all the topics we love talking about. So I knew when I started the group that we were going to have people coming to us, generally in a very tender place, who were from each perspective of the affair. We would have the person who was quote unquote betrayed, the person who like strayed in the relationship, the person who was the other woman or man. And I knew that, especially, we know online environments tend to be more kind of combative and polarized than in person. But especially when we're dealing with infidelity, I feel like it like heightens things. And I knew that I would need to create a culture where there was no shaming, there was no judgment. People weren't like telling others what they should do, but it was about sharing our experiences, sharing like wisdom that we've learned from people like Esther Perel and her colleagues in the space. And so I really built the foundation of a culture where it's different than like the rest of the internet. And that's like the one thing that people tell me when they think of our group is just that the culture is so different from any other online space they've been to. And so that in terms of like building the group, that was like a number one priority. It always feels like a privilege. Like even when we've had kind of fires, which doesn't happen that often nowadays, but every once in a while, I never feel like, oh, why do I have to do with this? It feels like a privilege because I know how much the space means to members. And then in terms of like participating in other communities as just like a member, yeah, it feels a little bit like less responsibility, less work. But I enjoy both. I will say I probably do gravitate more towards like communities where I'm in a leadership position. One of the things I didn't mention, which is super, super meaningful to me, is in my neighborhood in Chicago, I've gotten really involved with my local neighborhood association. And they do a lot of things, but one of the things that I've kind of reinvigorated is doing a big Earth Day project every year. And so I think this is now our 4th annual Earth Day. And what we do is we go into local parks that have kind of been dilapidated, where they get a lot of traffic and a lot of people utilize them, but they just haven't had like the care that they need. And so we'll do like major beautification projects every year in local parks.
Love that.
And that's something where I'm in a leadership role and feel just a lot of like meaning and gratification from that as well.
I love that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate you sharing too a little bit about your community, as you did, and I just want to celebrate and give you a ton of props for like to bring together. I mean, infidelity, right, is one of the hardest things we can navigate in a relationship. And you bring
so incredibly common.
And so common. And you bring together the people who have been cheated on, the people who did the cheating, and maybe the people who were the other person in that dynamic. All of those people basically sitting in a room together and then being like we're going to be in this community together and we're going to hear each other. We're going to be heard. And I just think there's incredible power in bringing those sort of 3 perspectives into one place. I think that's magic. So I'm excited for you and for that.
Yeah. And I'm curious if people do want to join, how they do that.
Yeah, we're just on Facebook. So if you enter Esther Perel discussion group, we'll pop up. And
we'll throw a link in the show notes.
Yes. And just make sure you answer the questions because I usually don't admit people unless they answer the membership questions.
Yeah. Show up for it. I love it.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Leah, for sharing a bit of what's been going on the last few years and for the work you do. And for anybody who wants a little bit more, Leah, you've agreed to stick around for some bonus questions. And I think Well, what do we have here? Esther Perel's game, Where Should We Begin? Maybe we'll draw some questions from that one to do for our bonus question. So thanks again for being here, Leah.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
And we're back. Thank you so much, Leah, for coming on again and sharing an update. It was so amazing to chat with you, and I'm excited to get this update out there.
Yeah, thank you from my side as well. It was a lovely chat, and we can't wait to do it again. A quick reminder to everybody, Leah, besides being awesome on our episode and on our podcast, she has also created the Esther Perel discussion group, where there is over 16,000 people who come together every single day in Facebook to talk about relationships. So you can find out more information on how to join that by following the link in the podcast show notes. And let's see, what else we got?
A quick reminder that our next community virtual workshop is coming up May 27th. It's called Building Emotional Resilience with Miche. You can find more information over on our website, normalizingnonmonogamy.com. Click on the community tab and also on the workshops tab, and you can find out a lot more.
And then next week, we're coming back at you. We've got a fantastic conversation with Andre. Beautiful chat.
Yes.
Looking forward to that one as well. And we will see you then.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for listening.